All right, hello everyone. This is the makeup class for March the 28th. It's the long Easter weekend. I hope you're all having a good time. For everyone in section 13 of Global Communication 1, this video is for you. Today I'm going to talk about the homework from last class. I'm also going to give you a little bit of homework this class, actually two things. I'll be giving you some commercial homework that I want you to do. I want you to watch some commercials and then write about it on Cyber Campus. And I'm also going to give you your first quiz. It's worth 5 points, and it's going to be questions related to summary and personal response. Speaking of summary and personal response, in our last class, I asked you to read page 72, which is the writing skill for writing a summary and personal response. I wanted you to read the writing model and then answer questions 1 through 5. I'll just quickly read through that now and then go through the answers, and you can check your homework at home. So on page 72, the writing model is as follows. According to the article, Cars That Think, in the near future, driverless cars may change the way people drive. The cars use technology that is already in many modern cars, such as GPS, sensors, and cameras. The sensors see the road and make decisions about turns and stops, and the GPS navigation system tells the car where to go. Car manufacturers say driverless cars are safer and use less gasoline. However, they cannot understand real-life situations, like obeying police instructions, as well as humans can. Also, it's not clear who is at fault when a driverless car causes an accident. The success of these cars will eventually depend on consumers and not car manufacturers. Okay, so a couple of things about this summary. It starts off by referencing the article itself. According to the article, Cars That Think, and the title is in quotation marks. Also, take a look at the size of this text. The original article is 6 paragraphs long, but the summary is only 1 paragraph. As a general rule, a summary really should condense the original text by about 75%. So if the original text is 1,000 words, for example, your summary should be about 250 words, roughly. It shouldn't be anywhere close to the original size of the article. If you do that, what you're doing is essentially rewriting it or paraphrasing it. You're not summarizing it. A summary, by definition, takes a larger piece of writing and compresses it into a smaller form, keeping the main idea and some of the key supporting ideas, but leaving out most of the details and examples that you get in the original text. It's also worth noting that a summary does not include quotes. You don't directly quote from the article. You shouldn't say, in the article it says, and then quote a whole sentence. That is not what a summary does. What a summary does is take the original writing and paraphrase it. Using very similar words, the writer who is summarizing will take the original text and put it into a much briefer format. So, like I said, taking 1,000 words and putting it into 250, for example. It should not be anywhere near the size of the original text, and it also should not include direct quotations from the original text. Also, it should not copy word for word sentences from the original text. That is plagiarism, or taking someone else's writing and using it as your own. What a summary should do is take the same basic idea, but say it in slightly different words. That way you are paraphrasing and not copying. Okay, so if I take a look at page 73, question number 1, which sentence summarizes the main idea of the reading? Obviously, that is the first sentence. The whole point of a summary is to begin with the main idea or thesis statement of the article. So according to the article, Cars That Think, in the near future, driverless cars may change the way people drive. That's the answer for question 1. Question 2 says, read these sentences from reading 1 and then write the sentences from the model on page 72 that summarize them. Now, in this case, I disagree with the use of the word summarize, because these sentences here are actually quite close in length to the original. So to me, that's more of a paraphrase than a summary, but whatever. Okay, so 2A, the sensors can see turns, red lights, stop signs, and other cars. Its computer uses GPS and other data to drive the car safely to its destination. That sentence is summarized or paraphrased in the summary. The sensors see the road and make decisions about turns and stops, and the GPS navigation system tells the car where to go. So the same meaning, but using different words. B, in addition, if an accident does occur, who is to blame? Do you blame the driver, the car manufacturer? This sentence is paraphrased in the summary. Also, it is not clear who is at fault when a driverless car causes an accident. So you're looking at basically the same meaning. And then C, in the end, consumers will decide if driverless cars are to become the cars of the future. That's the very last sentence in the summary. The success of these cars will eventually depend on consumers, not car manufacturers. Okay, now let's take a look at the personal response. So I was surprised to read about cars that can drive themselves. To me, it sounds like something from a futuristic movie, not real life. I understand why some people would like to own a driverless car, but I don't agree that they are the cars of the future for 2 reasons. First of all, I personally think that people would prefer to be in control when driving. People know that they are better at reacting to unexpected situations than a machine. They would feel terrible if the car made a mistake, or they would feel terrible if their driverless car caused an accident that they could have avoided if they were in control. Also, I think people would worry about the car's computer making mistakes. Computers can shut down, get viruses, and have errors. Nobody wants to experience these problems when they drive. Okay, so question number 3 asks, does the writer of the model summary have a positive or negative reaction? How do you know? The answer is quite obviously a negative reaction. And it says in, I think, sentence number 3, I don't agree that they are the cars of the future. So clearly states the writer's opinion. Question number 4, what reasons does the writer give to support his or her opinion? First, the writer says that people want to be in control of the car. And secondly, they might worry about the computer making mistakes. And then finally, number 5, do you agree with the writer? Why or why not? If we were in class right now, I could actually ask a few of you directly, which opinion do you have? Do you think that driverless cars will be the cars of the future or not? It's quite interesting to hear. Some people are quite positive that this technology is inevitable, that it will become quite popular and we'll see many driverless cars on the roads. Other people are a little bit more skeptical and they say, no, people will want to continue driving because people like driving. They also want to feel in control. They might be worried about the car making mistakes or the system possibly getting hacked. And there might be some distrust of the technology. Okay, so there we go. That's the homework from last class. Now what I'm going to do is go on to today's class. And then at the end, I'm going to give you your homework. Homework number 1 will be to watch some commercials and then comment about them on Cyber Campus. And homework number 2 will be a 5-point quiz. The first homework, making comments about commercials, you will receive participation points for. Remember, participation is part of your grade, and at the end of the course, if there are a few students that have almost the same grade, but some students have participated more than others, it will be those students that get the A if there's a heavy competition for that. Okay. All right, so let's take a look here. So we're now moving on to Unit 4, and this is called Does Advertising Help or Harm Us? We're going to look at commercials and advertising. Now, before we look at the commercials themselves, let's get a little bit of context. Why do companies advertise their products and services, either in pictures or commercials or something else? Well, they could try and advertise a product or service, which is the basic thing. Some companies are specifically advertising a product they want you to go out and buy. They want to increase the sales of this particular product or service. But some companies, Nike and Adidas are probably the biggest examples of this. When you see a Nike or Adidas commercial, Adidas, quite often they're not advertising a specific shoe, but what they're trying to do is promote their company's brand. They're trying to show their company values. And by creating a positive image of their company, they hope that people will then go out and buy their shoes. Remember, it's a lot easier to sell a feeling than it is to sell a pair of shoes. In other cases, there might be a group that wants to deliver a public service message, and we'll be looking at public service messages a little bit later in the course, or possibly to increase awareness of an issue. So it's not always just about making money. Sometimes it's about raising awareness and telling the public something. Okay, one advertisement, which I think this is an older advertisement, so I wanted to get something most of you haven't seen. This is for toothpaste. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the brand, which is not a particularly popular brand in Korea, but I think you can get it at Costco. And it says, "Smile with strength, Colgate." You have a female athlete here, and she's got the tape between her teeth. The point is she's been brushing her teeth with Colgate, and therefore her teeth are really strong and healthy. So rather than just selling the toothpaste and showing someone brushing their teeth, they're selling the image or the feeling of strong teeth. I don't know whether any human being has actually bought a salad from McDonald's, but it does get advertised. Okay, so a little bit of history. Now, when I looked online, it said that the first newspaper advertisement was in 1704, so about 320 years ago. Now, I'm sure if you go back in history, there could be some advertisement in ancient China or Egypt or something, or Mesopotamia. But for relatively modern history, we say 1704 is when advertising in newspapers began. The first commercial on TV was on the 1st of July, 1941, and that was for a watch. A wristwatch was being advertised. A lot of companies will put their advertisements in places where their target market spends a lot of time. So if you're on the bus or the subway, you're going to notice certain types of advertisements. If you look on TV during certain programs, you're going to see other types of advertisements. Just to give you an example, when I visit my mother-in-law, I have a Korean mother-in-law, and I see the dramas that she's watching on TV, and they're very melodramatic. There's a young girl who, she's poor, but she has a nice heart, and she loves a doctor, and she wants to marry him, but the doctor has a mother, and the mother doesn't want her son to marry the poor girl because she doesn't have money. And somebody else starts crying, and then there's violins in the background. You know that sort of drama that I'm talking about. Young people don't watch these sorts of dramas, but old people do. And I noticed that during the commercial break, they have a lot of advertisements for medicine and products that older people want or need. And that's because they know that it's older people that are watching these types of programs. Whereas my children, if they are in the other room and they are watching Shimbi Apata or something on TV, during the commercial breaks, they're going to have advertisements for children's toys because the companies know that children are watching these types of programs. And if you go on YouTube, the algorithm is trying very hard to figure out what sort of person you are in order to target particular advertisements to you. Now, let's take a look at some of these slogans here. We've got KFC, Red Bull, Subway, Carlsberg, L'Oreal, HSBC, Energizer, MasterCard, Nike, and Apple. Lots of companies have slogans. These are short phrases or sentences that are used to promote their brand. So, for example, KFC, fun thing here. In one of my classes, when I asked a student, okay, what is the slogan for KFC? One of the students said, oh, the answer is H. It gives you wings. And I thought, like chicken wings. KFC's slogan is not, it gives you wings. It's actually, it's actually finger licking good. You know, the chicken is so tasty that you lick your fingers to get the grease off. Red Bull, which is an energy drink, its slogan is it gives you wings because it's full of caffeine and should give you enough energy that you can fly. Subway makes sandwiches and their slogan is eat fresh. Carlsberg, which you can buy 4 cans of for 12,000 won at GS25, is probably the best beer in the world, according to their slogan. L'Oreal is, I believe, a French cosmetic company. And if you imagine yourself going into a department store and finding a very small bottle of skin cream and it's $100 and you think, oh, it's expensive. Should I really spend $100 on this very small bottle of skin cream? And then you look at the slogan, because you're worth it. And you think, yeah, and you buy the product. HSBC, that's the world's local bank. Energizer, because their batteries last for a long time. It keeps going and going and going. MasterCard, they actually include the slogan, the product name in the slogan. For everything else, there's MasterCard. Nike, probably the most well-known slogan in the world, just do it. And finally, Apple, whose slogan drives English teachers crazy because the grammar is wrong. Think different. Think is a verb, different is an adjective. Think differently. So Tim Cook, there you go. All right. Now, if you take a look at some old advertisements, you know, commercials and posters from previous generations, magazine ads, some of them seem really, really inappropriate by today's standards. And I'd like to say something before I show you these advertisements. If you remember nothing else from this course, you know, a couple of years, did I take Global Communication 1 back in Sogang University? You probably won't remember very much, but I hope you remember this sentence. The past is like a foreign country. They do things differently there. It's very easy to think that people of previous generations are almost like aliens because they tend to think very different than us, think differently than we do. And the truth is, if you were able to go back in time and see how people talked and thought and acted in previous generations, it would be very much like visiting a foreign country, even in your own country. If you could go back to Korea in the 1980s, you would probably feel some kind of culture shock. Well, now let's take a look at some of the advertisements that I was able to dig up from previous generations. Like I said, some of them quite inappropriate by today's standards. The first one we have here, and says, I'm sending Chesterfields to all my friends. That's the merriest Christmas that any smoker can have. Chesterfield mildness plus no unpleasant aftertaste. If you don't recognize the man endorsing the cigarettes, let me tell you his name. His name is Ronald Reagan, and he was a very famous actor in Hollywood. And later on, he became the president of the United States from 1980 to 1988. So from the time I was, 5 years old to 13 years old, he was the president. And it's a very interesting time in world history. Anyways, you'll notice that this is a Christmas present advertisement, because back in the day, what's the perfect present for your friends, especially if they smoke? And back then, most people smoked. You buy them cigarettes. But it wasn't just Hollywood actors that would endorse cigarettes. Doctors would do this too. So I like this here. Smoke a fresh cigarette. You can't imagine an advertisement coming out like that these days, right? There is no peppery dust in Camels. There's no stale, crumbly, parched tobacco. The scientific germ-safe wrapping. Okay, so the whole point is, if you want to give your throat a vacation, smoke a Camel cigarette. Probably be impossible today. The way men and women are portrayed in advertising has also changed a lot over time. For example, if you look at this advertisement here, this is for Schlitz beer. You've got the woman who's crying because, of course, she's staying home cooking the dinner because the woman's place was in the home. And she's so sad because she burned the food. And her husband, in his suit, has just come home from the office, and he says, "Don't worry, darling, you didn't burn the beer." And I don't think this advertisement was done ironically. All right, here's another very inappropriate ad by today's standards. Show her it's a man's world. And you can see the woman here is on her knees giving breakfast in bed to her husband, and he's got his hands behind his head, and he's wearing a necktie, and this is actually a necktie advertisement. So, gentlemen, if you want to know the secret to success in this world, it's all about the necktie. Beyond that, I was also able to find some advertisements that were quite inappropriate in how they showed different races of people. I know racial tension is still a big issue in the United States today. If you go back into the relatively recent past, you can find some advertising which is just shocking. This one says, "You dirty boy, why don't you wash yourself with Phenolius soap?" I don't think you would get that sort of advertising in 2024. Here's another one. This is from World War II era, so early to mid 1940s. The United States was in World War II, fighting the Japanese Imperial Army in the Pacific. And this advertisement from a children's comic book shows American soldiers, maybe on Guadalcanal or New Guinea, one of the many Pacific islands where the Japanese Imperial Army and the American military fought. And it says that the Japanese are now putting out Wheaties as booby traps. A booby trap would be something that doesn't look dangerous, but really is. Maybe there's a bomb or a grenade in it, something to trick the soldiers so that you can kill them or hurt them. And in this case, they have turned Wheaties cereal into a booby trap. Wheaties cereal is, of course, the favorite cereal of young Americans because it's so tasty and nutritious. Once again, this sort of advertising, which includes a very racist word for Japanese people, was published in a children's comic book. Remember what I said just a few minutes ago. The past is like a foreign country. They do things differently there. They most certainly did. Okay, so yeah, if you want to know a lot about a society, take a look at their advertisements. Something that I noticed when I first came to Korea about 20 years ago, I saw Korean commercials for the first time, and they're so different from the commercials that I grew up with in Canada. The colors were different. The vibe was different. The way even things like cars were advertised were strikingly different. For example, where I grew up, a lot of cars were or trucks were advertised on TV, and you'd see a man wearing some sort of rough clothing, like the really sort of traditional, I don't know, Bruce Springsteen style of masculinity, driving a truck up a mountain or something. Whereas when I came to Korea, most of the car advertising would show a man in a suit, very suave, very debonair, like Lee Byung-han, something like that, driving through a downtown city street, always with no traffic. Lee Byung-han never got stuck in a traffic jam at Gangnam-gu. But I digress. But the point is, different societies are going to advertise the same products in slightly different ways. And I remember when I went back to Canada after several years, and I saw some Canadian commercials again, I was quite shocked at how I felt a kind of culture shock or reverse culture shock. My own country's commercials now felt strange because I had become accustomed to Korean commercials. If you travel overseas, if you live in another country for a long period of time, you will be able to see very clearly how different societies will advertise the same things differently. And you really can understand a society not by just what they advertise, but how they advertise it. Okay, so as time went on, TV and video started to become more popular. You started seeing somewhat less not less advertising in newspapers and magazines, but people started reading newspapers and magazines less. More and more advertising was on a screen, either a TV screen or, by the early 2000s, computer screens, and then later on smartphone screens, as online advertising became much more common. So if you were to put together a commercial for a company, imagine you worked for the advertising department of a big firm, you're going to look at these 4 basic elements of a commercial: the concept of the commercial, the punchline or kicker at the end, the product itself, of course, and then you need to decide if you're going to have any music with the commercial. So some commercials will have a story, like you'll actually watch a scenario play out. There are characters in the commercial. They might talk or interact. It's almost like a scene from a movie. Other commercials will just have a single strong visual image that they want the viewer to remember. The punchline, you get this in a lot of commercials where you don't see the product until the very end. And a couple of the commercials you're going to watch today for homework fall into this category. You watch the commercial and you think, this is interesting, but I have no idea what the product is. They don't show the product. You can't see the company name or logo. And it's only in the final moments of the commercial, sometimes the final second, that you actually understand what is being advertised. And some of those can really be funny to watch because you suddenly click in and you realize what product is being advertised. And that is the punchline. It's the aha moment at the end. The product itself. Okay, when do you show the product? Do you show the product at the beginning of a commercial? Do you show it in the middle? Do you wait until the very end? Do you show the product throughout the commercial? If it's a particular function, and we're going to look at a couple of commercials whether it's a car or a truck, it's not the car that's being advertised or the truck, it's a particular function that is being advertised. When do you show that function? You want to create a positive image, obviously, for the product. And you might use a famous person, like a celebrity, to endorse the product. If you do that, do you want the focus on the product, or do you want the focus on the celebrity and hope that the positive image of the celebrity will rub off on your product? Then there's the music. You might have some background music. You might use a famous K-pop song, or you might have a catchy little jingle, maybe a 5 or 6 second melody that repeats over and over. Different commercials will use different types of music in order to create a mood or get some sort of feeling from the viewer. If you do choose a famous person to promote or endorse your product, well, then you might want to think carefully about what sort of person you're going to choose. Like if you're advertising Nike shoes, you might want to have someone like Sogang. Oh no, Sogang advertises Adidas, doesn't he? But yeah, you want to advertise a sporting product, you're probably going to get an athlete. If you're advertising some cosmetics, you might choose an actor or an actress that is known for their beautiful skin, something like that. Okay, so we're just about at the end here. So this is what I'd like you to do for homework. Homework number 1. I have a few questions here. What is being advertised? When is the product or brand shown? Who is the target audience? What is the tone of the commercial? Is there a celebrity endorser? Is the commercial effective or not? These are a few questions that I would like you to answer. You don't have to answer all of them, but try and answer at least 3 or 4 of them. On Cyber Campus, I might even change one of these questions slightly. It doesn't matter too much. But I'm looking for you to write at least 5 sentences, 5 or 6 sentences about one particular commercial. And I'll show you the commercials here. So I've got it says Berlitz German Coast Guard, Nike Unlimited, Can a Gum Commercial Make You Cry, Volvo Trucks, the epic split featuring Van Damme, Sticking Together No Matter What, that's at Tsuruya, Japan, and Heinz Baked Beans astronaut ad. If you go on Cyber Campus announcements, you can get the PPT. Just click on the links. Anyway, I would like you to watch all 6 commercials and then choose one of them. Whichever one you choose, it's up to you. Choose one of the commercials and then answer these questions and go on Cyber Campus discussion. Cyber Campus discussion. And I would like you to make a post there, about 5 or 6 sentences, answering a few of these questions. You don't have to answer all of the questions. I'm looking just for about 5 or 6 sentences to show me that you've watched the commercials, you've chosen one, and you have some kind of understanding and opinion about that commercial. So that's going to be your first homework. You can watch the commercials and make a post on Cyber Campus discussion anytime before our class next Tuesday, which will be April the 2nd. Okay, so those are the commercials. I'll skip the public. I'll skip that. Okay, and now for the big homework. The first homework, that's just for participation. This one, however, is your first real assignment. Quiz number 1, and it's based on the reading Eating with Your Eyes on pages 38 and 39. Not sure if you can see it. No, I don't think you can see it there. No. Yeah, it doesn't come out very well on Zoom. Anyway, if you go on page 38 and 39, you'll see the article Eating with Our Eyes. It's about how you can make your food pictures look more attractive. Millions of people take pictures of their food and upload it to Instagram. This article talks about the different tricks of making a food look more attractive. Read that. Might want to review the model summary and personal response on page 72 as well. And then I will attach onto Cyber Campus announcements, where this PPT is, on Cyber Campus announcements, I'm going to attach a short quiz. And what I'd like you to do is answer the questions on Cyber Campus assignments. So I'll say that again. You can actually get the quiz on Cyber Campus, Cyber Campus announcements, and then go to Cyber Campus assignments, and that is where you will upload it. And then I'll just check it there. Yeah, and if you want to, you can upload the Microsoft Word file, or if you want to, you can just put the answers into the text box. You can do either. As long as you answer all 5 questions, that's all that is important. Okay, if you've got any questions, please post them on Kakao Work, which is our chat room here on your smartphone, and I'll see everybody next Tuesday. So have a great long weekend. If you've got any questions, please post them, and then I'll answer your question right away. I hope you have a great time, and signing off. Okay, bye-bye.